All right, there we go.
All
Ladies and
right,
gentlemen, welcome to this month's evidence-based esports. I'm here as usual with Matt. Matt, how you doing?
doing well.
All
What
right,
about you?
doing pretty well. Excited to talk about posture this month. 'Cause Lord knows I
Yeah,
harp on
so
that a month.
today's episode is probably the first part of a multi-part series about posture and really its relevance in esports or gaming. And you know, both of us have been really fortunate to be a part of the esports community for the past couple of years. So it's been really fun to see all the different types of posture out there. And
Fun is one
you
word
know,
for it.
it's it's one thing that I think it's overdue for us to talk about, but
Agreed.
today we'll be going over what posture is, number one, or two, why it's important, and then three, our recommendations for how to have better posture, whether it be Smash or PC or anything. We're going to give you our specific and unique recommendations. So, starting off first, I'd like to speak about what posture is because it's talked about pretty often, but I'm not so sure all of us really understand what it is. And I can go ahead and start with this. But with posture, typically whenever I talk to any of the players at CLG or even some of my patients that I work with on a daily basis, I like to start with a really general explanation, and that is that hey, our bodies are the rate. Posture is the arrangement of our body parts through all the postures and positions that we assume throughout the day. So you can think of walking, sitting, getting up out of a chair, just standing there. Um, how our body parts are arranged is posture. And if you think about it a little further, there's really two components to it when we're not moving and when we're moving. So the first part is static posture. And that's the position of our bodies when we're not moving. So think like sitting in front of your PC, sitting in front of the TV. And as you would expect, static posture is the most relevant to gaming or esports because it's the position we're holding for those extended hours of play, of field wars, of raids, or competitive solo queues. It's really the sport position or our esports position. And that's kind of a big focus of what we're going to be talking about today. But secondly, you can think of posture as dynamic, where it's moving. So like walking and getting up out of our chair. And if you think of exercise, like when we're doing lifts, like deadlift, bench press, or squats, it's form. You can think of posture or dynamic posture as form. And so again, kind of just briefly to review, static posture is what we have to understand in gaming because, so often we focus on our wrists moving, our fingers moving, but we really tend to forget about all those joints that are not moving and are holding up our bodies up against gravity. So our head, our shoulders, our mid back, our lower back. And because they're so rarely thought about it, yeah, they're mentioned, but it's something that we need to pay attention to a little more. And I wanted to more or less bring some more awareness to that in today's episode.
All right. So, kind of to sum up, the static posture is what we're paying more attention to here because that's what we spend more time in as gamers. That's not to say that dynamic posture isn't also important because, of course, your posture throughout the day is going to impact, the strain that's present in your muscles. So, if you are someone who is active, if you're lifting, if you've got a training program, or even if you're just doing normal everyday work, different tasks will have different demands, and so your dynamic posture is also important. But because this is, evidence-based esports, not evidence-based every other aspect of your life, we're going to focus on static posture today, and maybe somewhere down the line talk a bit more about dynamics.
Is there
So,
anything else you? Oh, sorry. Is
it's
there
okay, go
anything
ahead.
else you'd like to add to kind of posture in general that you think they may
So I think there's this kind of
benefit from?
misconception that when we talk about having good posture, there's one exact and perfect form that it has to be. And that's not at all accurate because yes, there are general principles that are common for everybody. There are certain things that should be tight and certain things that should be relaxed and certain things that should be supported for everyone. But that isn't going to look exactly the same for every person. The setup that supports you best isn't going to look exactly the same. And it's also going to be different depending on the demands you're placing on your body. So the ideal versus suboptimal but still relatively okay versus really, really terrible posture for a Smash player is going to be different than the ideal versus suboptimal versus really, really terrible position for a PC gamer, because you're asking your hands and your arms and your shoulders and your back to do different things and support them in different ways. So if anybody ever tells you that there's only one right way to do it, A, they're wrong, and B, maybe get a little more critical thinking on that one. The other thing to keep in mind is a lot of what we discuss as being good posture, or muscle groups that we suggest should be engaged in your good posture, they don't just become supportive of you overnight. They don't just become supportive of you because you engage them while you happen to be gaming. If you want to have a strong core that supports you well, you're going to have to do something other than sit and keep your abs tight. And no, those vibrating belt things don't count. If you want to have shoulders that are supporting your arms, if you want to have good scapular posture, which we touched on a while back, you're not just going to develop the muscle strength and endurance to keep those structures where they're supposed to be by sitting in good positioning only when you're gaming. Inevitably, you will drift out of good posture. It happens to all of us. At some point, your muscles will fatigue. But if you want them to take longer to fatigue, if you want them to hold you in good positioning for a longer period of time, there are things you'll have to do outside of gaming in order to support that. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to do much, but you need to keep in mind that just because the specific competitive demands, even if you're just playing casually, the specific competitive demands of your body are not met just by doing competition. And the same way that you don't only see football players playing football, they also do cardio and weightlifting and balance training and plyometrics. And the same way, if you want your body to support you, you have to train it in ways other than just at a keyboard.
I really like that. I think that's a really good point to touch on. And especially the part where football players aren't just playing football. And you can even think about it like running. Mm-hmm. You know, running, especially if they're training for a marathon, they're not just going to be, well, I guess I might not be that great of a...
No, I run marathons. I know we don't just run.
Yeah, I mean, well, especially for running, I guess we can think about it in terms of distribution of training versus actual running the length of the marathon. You're not going to run 26 miles every single time. You're going to prepare adequately during the preparation period before the actual competition to allow yourself to develop the right amount of endurance to manage that long 26-mile thing that I can't do, but it's something maybe I will one day. But I mean, that principle of preparing and understanding, hey, this sport running, this sport football, this sport baseball, they all have these physical demands that we need to understand, and there's a baseline of physical fitness or health that you need to be able to have, and the preparation is how you allow yourself to achieve that. So I think that's a really good point that you touched on, and from there, I think we can kind of move on a little bit to talk about...
I wanted to touch on one more thing before we switch off this, because I know that we had talked about when we did our episode on tendinosis and tendinitis and tendinosynovitis, we talked about the idea of a return to play protocol where you kind of you progress back to that competitive level of the specific tasks that you need to do to play a game. In the same way that, if you're coming back from an injury, you need to build yourself up to that level. You need to do the same thing to maintain that level. You're not just only ever playing competitive matches against people. You're going to be doing tech skill. You're going to be doing strategy. You're going to be brainstorming. You're going to be theory crafting. And training your body outside of the game is important too. And the reason that it's important is because that posture is what keeps you set and ready. Posture is key, because I think we touched on this in the very first episode we did. We talked about how it's hard to have mobile hands and mobile fingers if you don't also have a stable base for things to be mobile from. You can't have distal, farther out hands, wrists, etc. You can't have distal mobility without proximal, nearer to the trunk, stability. Think about it like, so if you're playing Smash, you got your GameCube controller in your lap. Say you're leaning forward, you're leaning onto your arms. And so at the same time that your arms are being asked to support your hands, to keep your hands in a ready position, to keep your fingers mobile at all times, because Lord knows you're going to need to hit that L cancel or that wave dash, or you're going to need to wave shine 87 goddamn times in a row. Um, why do you think Smash players have hand problems? At the same time, you're asking your arms to support you in doing all of that. If you were leaning forward onto your arms, you're also asking them to support your body weight from your core. And you could take an entire, very large chunk of mass out of the picture by asking your core to support itself and letting your arms only focus on supporting your hands. That's one of the reasons that posture is so important, because that proximal stability is key to making sure that you're mobile further down the chain.
Yeah, I think one really good example of that is just if you're slouching and you're trying to reach. Can I reach that far? No. But if I sit up tall, there I can just reach way overhead.
I mean, I can sit up tall and I still can't reach that high, but yeah, good fun.
But I mean, basically, I mean that's such a great point. And a lot of it, I mean, I guess we can, move forward and talk a little bit about why posture, or why we think posture is important.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't you go ahead and start with that?
All right. So first of all, that proximal stability in order to promote distal mobility, but also because the structures we're talking about that support you, the really big ones that we're focusing on, especially kind of at the core of your posture, pun intended, because it's your core. Those are your larger and your stronger muscle groups. Those are the ones on which you can rely without exhausting them quite so much. They don't fatigue as quickly, partly because of the composition of muscle fibers. You know, there's all kinds of fun physiology we can get into if you're enough of a dork like us to like that. But generally speaking, it's important to know that those are the muscles that you want to use to support you, because they can take it. They can take that load. They can bear it for a while. They're your carry. They tank up like crazy. They're your, I don't know, if it's Overwatch, if it's Overwatch,
good,
they're
actually.
your Reinhardt.
Yeah. Exactly. Perfect.
Your core is your Reinhardt.
Such
your
a good
hands
analogy. Yep. Got tanks.
Yep. And Tracy can't run around doing important shit if Reinhardt isn't making sure that she is not constantly dead. There we go. That's your core.
Boom.
Core stability, proximal mobility analogy of the day.
That is great. Do you have anything else that you think?
No, I think that's the biggest point I could hit on about why posture is important.
Great. So, I mean, I love that. I mean, I totally think having better posture, having that stable base allows you to access a lot more mobility elsewhere, especially in the hands and your shoulders. And just as you would expect, well, actually, I'm going to touch on a different point, but for posture, well, the reason why I think it's important, and kind of uniquely in that, I think that when you have good posture, it can actually potentially lead to better performance. And most of the times we just think, hey, it's about maintaining a standard of health, but it can actually, and has been shown to improve performance, especially with play. So this is something I touch on, especially with players at CLG. And there's two big reasons why. One is that it allows us to optimize our physical capacity. And by that, I just mean that it allows our muscles to work the most efficiently and the most effectively when we hold these positions of better posture. So, thinking chest up, wrist neutral, our muscles have to work the least to accomplish the actions that we want them to. So typing or button pressing or holding our body up against gravity during those prolonged periods of gaming. And that also means, just as Caitlin mentioned earlier, that it takes longer for our muscles to fatigue in these positions. So it's the neutral position. And for those that don't know what that is, it's just the position wherein our muscles and our joints have the least amount of physical stress on them. So they don't have to work as hard because they're at the optimal length. There's the optimal balance of muscles on either side of the joint. And that allows for the joint to be in its most neutral or healthy position. So that's important. Well, I guess the discomfort or feeling of fatigue can really detract from your focus, especially when you're playing at high levels. And not only that, let's say you overuse your wrist muscles a little bit, that can actually affect your coordination of your wrists over time. And it's something that's unconscious. So if you find yourself playing for an extended period of time and you notice, hey, I'm kind of doing really bad, I don't know why. I feel like I'm pretty good now. I mean, I'm already master in Overwatch, but it sometimes it could be relating to coordination. It could be something your tendons become slightly strained, your ability to understand or your body's natural sense of your position is affected. And even if it's very, very small, a minor strain, this can happen because we automatically and our bodies automatically compensate. So that with that being said, posture allows us to again optimize our physical capacity so our muscles work well, they don't get tired as easily, and then we avoid our sort of mental energy being put onto this discomfort that we may feel from being fatigued. So that's one. And the second part of kind of having better posture leading to better performance is that it can actually increase confidence. And through a lot of different games, we know, like CSGO, which is momentum based, confidence is huge. It's huge in changing the momentum, especially after a half. If you're down or if you lose 2 rounds, you need to make sure you are able to come back, especially in competitive play. And this has been actually mentioned in a really, really popular TED Talk. I think it was by Amy Cuddy. And she had mentioned some studies by Harvard and Columbia that when you have these power positions or open postures wherein your rib cage can expand more, you have a better profile of hormones. So less cortisol and more testosterone, which has been shown to increase your confidence. But there's a reason for that. And they didn't really offer, when I looked into the study, the potential reason why this happens, why there's this better neuroendocrine profile of more testosterone, less cortisol. And my thought was that, hey, when you guys are in this more open posture, more rib expansion, you can breathe better. And it has been shown that, hey, when you breathe better, when you have more efficiency of your cardiorespiratory system, so your heart, your lungs, and your overall circulation, when that improves, your confidence has been shown to improve. You're less risk averse, and it also has been shown that it facilitates, I guess, positive thinking. So
That positive mental
that's
attitude
huge.
that we constantly talk about.
Right.
That's
Right.
not just something that only exists in your head, or at least it does. But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it doesn't exist physiologically too. You need the oxygen to support it.
Exactly. Exactly. So really, the bottom line with that is, hey, if you have good posture, it can lead to better performance. You know, we can
Yes.
play more confidently, and we can know confidently that our muscles are working in the best way possible. So with all of that, now we can kind of touch on how we would recommend you guys to sit or lean or do anything or have better posture when you guys are playing games. So I like to start we'll
Should
start
we go
at
from
the
the top
top and
down?
then work all the way down.
We'll go top
Yeah.
down.
So starting from the neck, this is the most common postural fault that we always see in the gaming population or any sedentary population is the forward head. This guy, this guy. And
This fucking guy.
it's that fucking guy. I mean, it's the worst. So, your head is coming way too far in front of your trunk, and generally, we like to keep our bodies, as I mentioned, in neutral position. So for the neck, it's just a slight curvature, like this. It should be just slightly curved, not too far, and you can think of making a double chin. So I like to use that cue just to remind myself. There's a lot of different ways to think about it. You can tuck your chin, but it's not so much bringing your
Nope,
chin down. It's
rounding.
more just bringing your head slightly back.
You know what it
You don't have
reminds?
to.
All right,
You don't have to go crazy like that.
so really terrible movie reference that like maybe 10% of people ever watching this will get. Did you guys ever see the movie Master of Disguise? The part when he says, "Am I not turtly enough for the turtle club?" and he's bringing his head back and forth like this. That's what it's supposed to be. That tucking in motion, not the rounding
Hey,
down.
perfect. We can say you can either turtle head,
Turtle head.
or double chin, whatever works out for you guys. But just it's not something crazy where you have to bring it all the way back and look like this when you're playing. But you're just bringing it slightly back.
Right.
And the idea is that you just want that slight natural curvature of your neck. So for the neck, just remember double chin, turtleneck.
All right.
Just bring it back slightly. And then moving on to the mid back. And this is actually, I feel like, the most important part of the upper body when we're talking about posture. Think of it as the foundation, the base. So your mid back dictates the position of your neck, your shoulder blades, your arms, and everything else for your upper body. So as we do with the neck, we want to make sure it's in the neutral position, which is slightly rounded. So if your neck's like this, your lower back is like this. So, or mid back is like this. And to remember that, I just think chest up. And you can imagine like there's a string at the center of your chest, and it's being pulled up and out. And something that happens a lot of the times when we try to do that is we compensate a little bit from our lower back. We kind of arch our lower back to get that. You might not be able to see that. We don't want that. We want it just to come from the chest. It's kind of a small motion. And to avoid that, you can think about tightening your stomach. Like if someone was going to punch you in your stomach, you're going to tighten that up, and then you can think about bringing your chest up. That's it. It's like if you're a dancer. So just the chest up.
It's also kind of like taking a good deep breath, like that. You know, when you take that good big breath in and you feel like your sternum rise a little bit, you're like,
exactly.
It's that top position up here. You're not supposed to look like Superman flying, guys. We are not doing the da 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 da.
So we have chest up or deep breath. Those are two perfect, I think, ways to remember. So starting from neck, we have double chin or turtleneck. Then we have chest up and deep breath. Those two things, we have the base already. And then the last kind of thing I want to talk about for the upper body is your shoulder blade position. And this is something we had already talked about in the most recent episode. Was it recent? Or 2 episodes ago. And there's this really common recommendations to bring your shoulders back and down. And sometimes that's really misinformed because the most common faulty position of your shoulder blade is actually that it's too low. And sometimes it's actually related to the mid-back position. So when you're already rounded like this, your shoulder blades move a little lower than they should. But in general, the position of your shoulder blades, the most, again, common thing that we see is that it's already too low. When you bring your shoulder blades down and back, you're actually putting a little too much tension on your neck. So I think the better recommendation is first just to set your mid-back, so chest up or deep breath, and then bring your shoulder blades back together. And if you feel that there's some discomfort maybe in your neck, bring it slightly up. Don't bring it down. So I guess that's kind of weird to see, but it'll be like
Go for it.
Chest up, and then you bring your shoulder blades back and slightly up. So not like this, but just very slightly up. Yeah. Yep. So those are the 3. So we have chest up. Wait. Yeah. I always like to start with chest up. Okay. So chest up, because that sets the foundation for everything. So deep breath, turtleneck, then shoulder blades back, and slightly up if you need to. That's your more or less optimal sitting position. Yeah. Then. So there's your. And while that's all, and while that's all crucial to understand, I think Caitlin, you're going to be speaking about the most important joints of all, our gaming tools, and then everything else.
So I'm gonna take it to the gaming tools last. I'm gonna start with kind of all the things that everything else you talked about are sitting on, literally. So just like you know, you can't have that good neck positioning without the mid back to support it, and you can't have that good mid back positioning without your abs to support it. You also need to pay attention to your low back, your pelvis, and your feet and legs. So we're gonna start with the pelvis, which means that I need to switch screens real quick and climb on top of my stack of books because I'm short and you can't see it otherwise. So hang tight 1 second, guys.
This is going to be great.
This is going to be
Get
great.
ready, guys.
I'm standing on a stack of about 6 physical therapy school textbooks because I'm really short and I don't have a stool. So let's see how this goes.
Good.
All right. Houston, we have lift off. So you can also see my fantastic Dota leggings. So there's 3 general positions of your pelvis, and I'm going to point them out by using 2 bony prominences. The first one to pay attention to is in the front, the ASIS, the anterior superior iliac spine. Got my thumb right there. My thumb is on that. Pay attention to where my thumb is. I'm going to find the same point in the back, the posterior point. So right now, as I'm standing, these points are about equal. I am approximately in neutral pelvic position. I'm not tilted way far forward or way far back. If I start tilting forward, if I go into what's called anterior pelvic tilt, you'll see my thumb go below my pinky, like this. If I go into posterior pelvic tilt, you'll see the opposite happen. My pinky will go below my thumb, like this. The other thing to pay attention to with those 2 positions, when I go into anterior pelvic tilt, all of a sudden I've got this big arch in my back. It's a really hard curve of the lumbar spine. And when I go into posterior pelvic tilt, that normal curve of your lumbar spine, it reverses. It's a reversal of the lordotic curve, or it goes into a neutral spot. And normally you'd think like, oh, neutral is good. Well, yeah, but you want your lumbar spine to have some curve. So when I'm in that good neutral position, where my points are more or less equal, my spine is a little bit curved back here. Just like when you're in good neck position, your neck is a little bit curved up here. So those three positions: anterior, neutral, posterior. And yes, that is literally the dance from Jump On It. All right, so that was my explanation of the three different ways your pelvis tilts. When you're sitting in your chair, you are inevitably going to go into some amount of posterior pelvic tilt. Because, hey, you are sitting. You have rotated in order to sit on your sit bones. That's what they're there for. But you want to pay attention to how far you're tilting. Because when you start to do that slumping posture that we've talked about, when you're rounding and sliding down, you'll feel your whole back rounds and your pelvis tilts as well into more of that posterior tilted position where the front of your pelvis is sitting above the back of your pelvis. And that's not good. That places more stress on your spine. Similarly, when you are leaning way far forward and you're doing that melee posture, where you got your hands on your knees and you're down like this, you're going to end up in anterior pelvic rotation. You're going to be arching your back more in order to make sure that your head's in a position where you can actually see the screen. That is also putting stress on your spine. So wouldn't you know, neither of those two things are ideal. And in fact, the middle option is best. You want to be in that neutral position or close to neutral as you can. So paying attention to how hard your back is arching or rounding and finding that middle spot. The normal curve of the lumbar spine is a little bit away from your chair. So you should have some support there. It can be a small pillow. It can be a towel. It can be just making sure you're scooted all the way back and your chair has some curve to it. A lot of gaming chairs do have a bit of extra support built in there anyway. But paying attention to whether the points on your pelvis are tilted forward, backwards, or they're even and in the middle. They're really easy points to find. They are literally, you grab the bony points on either side of your hips, and if they're more or less lined up, good job. You're neutral. So for your pelvis, you want to line up your points. That can't possibly come back to haunt me. Next part, your legs and feet in general. You want your legs to be supporting some of your body weight so that it's not just all your back doing the work. You want to have some space between the chair and the calf muscles so that the back of your knees isn't pressed directly against the chair, kind of cutting off blood supply. If you're short like me, you may find that you cannot sit all the way back in your chair and simultaneously have your knees not pressing into the edge of the chair. In that case, you want to get a foot support to help A, keep your feet flat and supported, and B, make sure that your knees aren't digging in. So the foot support I have is this. It's a rocker board as well, so I can be moving my legs while I'm working. Decrease my risk of DVTs. No blood clots for me.
Nice. Mine is just a stack of books.
Stack of books works too.
Really ghetto. And then there's a cardboard over it.
Yep.
So great.
Like all those college textbooks that you bought for like $250 and the bookstore will only buy them back for $375. Cool. Use them as footrests instead. They'll be more useful that way.
Used it.
Yep.
Used it. Smells like feet.
Smells like feet.
I'm gonna sell it. I'm gonna sell it back soon. So.
I feel really bad for
It's an anatomy book on feet. So perfect.
All right. So feet supported, legs doing some work, and line up your pelvic points. Then we get to the really important part, the part that everybody actually wants to pay attention to, the hand and the wrist stuff. All hail the hands. All right. I did see a question earlier in chat. Are wrist supports good? The answer is the single worst answer we receive in PT school, as Matt well knows. It depends. You'll learn to hate this answer. It depends because it depends what position that puts your wrists in. If it allows your wrists to rest in a more neutral position or even slightly extended without applying pressure to your carpal tunnel and your Guyon's canal right here, which are, soft and squishy. If it supports you without digging in there, it could well be good. It might be a useful thing for you. However, if it digs in here or if it forces you up like this, it is bad. So a wrist rest is only good to whatever extent it promotes good posture. For PC gaming, good posture for your wrists will be Hold on, let me actually make sure that I'm fully in view here. All right, good posture would be slight extension of the wrist. You don't want it perfectly flat, actually. That places some stress on it. The neutral position of the hand is slightly extended. You can also see that my fingers are curved and relaxed right now. So if I were to be holding my mouse, let me see if I can get a long enough cord here. Holding my mouse, my fingers are relaxed and curved, just like they would be if my hand was empty and at rest. If you find yourself drawing your fingers up like this into that claw grip, you're placing extra stress on your hands. Over time, that stress will add up and build up and make your muscles hurt, make them tired, and potentially cause you to get injured. So, when possible, keeping that nice, relaxed, open position of the hand with the wrist slightly extended. So when it comes to your hands, think slightly up, slightly round. When it comes to using a GameCube controller or an Xbox controller or any controller along that line, obviously you're in a slightly different position because your hand, there we go. Your hands are rotated this way instead of this way. So they're in what's technically true neutral. You're not pronated, you are just neutral. Similarly, you don't want to be doing that claw-handed position where you have to draw your fingers up in order to hit things with the pads of your fingers. You want your hands to be as much in that relaxed and open position as you can. And here, the most important part of the neutral is not, let's see, what's the best angle to do this from? It's not the up or down part, it's the side-to-side part. Because inevitably with the controller, you are going to be in slight extension. That's great. What you want to avoid is too much what we call ulnar deviation or radial deviation. So you neither want to be tilted towards your thumb or towards your pinky, but in the middle. So think middle for your hands. Slightly up, slightly middle, slightly round.
I want to make sure that everyone heard that, especially the radial and ulnar deviation part, because a lot of the times, hey, yes, it can also increase stress, but it also changes how we move. So if we hold our hands in that position where it's already radially deviated and we're pressing buttons a lot, you're teaching your muscles how to work in that way. And even after you move yourself out of that position, you're going to tend to use those muscles even more because you develop this motor sort of pattern. Yeah, this muscle memory pattern of moving. So it's really important to every now and then check that position, especially with Smash. A lot of the times that's what leads to that sort of wrist pain that you feel right just below the joint. Because you're already using these muscles for extended periods of time, and then you're working on top of it by using that poor pattern. So
it's what
I
we
think
talked
that's
about with stability and mobility, right? You want these muscles of your forearm to be providing you a stable base, but if you're asking them to hold you in another position as well as support motion down here, that's asking an extra load out of them. You could instead take part of that load off of them. They could be in a neutral position instead of a tilted one-way position. And then you're no longer demanding that extra stress of them. And then, when you are in that neutral position, you're no longer asking them to fire in an abnormal pattern, basically.
Exactly.
And, all right, so recapping from head to toe, starting with the neck.
Yep. So starting with the neck, we started with the mid-back because that's the foundation. We start with bringing your chest up. We have, or taking a deep breath, and then 2, turtlenecking or double chin, and then 3, for your shoulder blades. Remember not to bring it back and down, but just bring it back first, then slightly up, especially for everyone that's just sitting for extended periods of time. Most of the time, it's going to be back and slightly up.
Right. So we got that deep breath, turtleneck, back and up. And then from your lower half, align your points. Make sure they're even. Make sure your feet are supported. Make sure your legs are supported. Then when you come to your hands, slightly up, slightly round, never tilted.
Perfect.
And never tilted doesn't just mean in terms of placing extra stress on your hands. Never tilted also means you are less likely to be tilted, mentally speaking, if you're keeping that good posture. We talked about how it promotes both improved performance and improved attitude to have a good supportive posture.
That's right. And just another point, kind of to touch on radial and ulnar deviation, in that a lot of people don't think about this, but when you hold your mouse and you start your gaming position, some people already hold it in radial or ulnar deviation. So you have to be and pay attention to how you're holding your mouse. Because when you're doing your swipes, your quick flicks, and especially in FPS games, if you're already holding it in a position, it can one limit your range of motion, but you're already fatiguing these muscles.
Right.
So pay attention and look at the position that you're holding your mouse in to make sure that it's not. Hey, can I do it?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
not like that.
Yep.
You're starting.
Your resting or your ready position should be neutral. It should be centered, because you're going to have to move. You're going to have to bring your wrist from side to side. And if you've already got your wrist over here, you can't go much further over there. If you've already got your wrist over here, you can't bend much more this way. So it limits your ability to play, and it fatigues the muscle at the same time.
Yep.
I think that is the highlights of posture. So at
Yeah.
this point, if there's questions in chat, it would be a good time to go to them. So let's see. Is it bad if I put my legs up on the level of my ass or in yoga position most of the time? I'm assuming you mean like kneeling or sitting cross-legged. It's not inherently a bad thing to change positions, but those two positions you mentioned, kneeling or cross-legged, are both kind of stressful on your knees. They put your knees in a lot of flexion, a lot of bend. So for a long period of time, they can be stressful. If you're going to be playing for several hours at a time, it would be a lot easier on your body to be in that feet flat on the floor or books or whatever supports you.
Yeah.
Alternately stretched legs forward. I've seen people do it. Let me see if I can do this. I can put my legs up on my desk, and lean really far forward and reach my keyboard. I am guilty of doing this sometimes. That doesn't mean it's good posture. So no, you should not have your legs way far out in front of you unless you are able to keep those legs supported and bring your keyboard literally into your lap. That's a little different.
Yeah.
Let's see. What are some good ways of... Oh, this is a good one. What are some good ways of reminding yourself to stand up straight, not just when gaming, but when walking too, if you've been used to kind of slumping a bit?
I think those recommendations, just those three little reminders that we came up with, just thinking, and it's really easy. The shorter and the more simple, the better. Just think chest up, slide double chin, and then shoulder blades back. That's, I think, one of the easiest things, and it's just something you have to get into the habit of. And they did a study that said, hey, if you dedicate 40 minutes in 5 days, you can change your posture, or you can change a motor pattern. So they did it relating to sports and changing landing patterns. But they said that in general, in order to change a motor activation or your coordination, so if you're used to holding yourself like this, it takes 5 days of 40 minutes each, although that's not realistic because no one's just going to sit there and be like, okay,
I'm paying attention.
40 minutes now. So no one's going to do that. But you want to take, if you just take 5 minutes every day, it'll take roughly 2 to 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, around that time period to improve your posture, which is not bad. That's 30 days of better posture.
Yep.
So
another thing that I've used in the past is both while gaming and while at work, setting a timer either on your watch or on your phone.
Yeah.
Just checking in with your body every half hour, every hour, and paying attention to A, what the position of your body is when you check in at that time, and then B, correcting it if it needs correcting. So say after half an hour I notice that my shoulders have started to slump down and round. Then I use those deep breath, up and in, those two short cues, and all of a sudden I've corrected my posture. Will I drift back out of that posture? Probably. Will I remember to drift back into it when I hear that timer go off again? Absolutely. And over time you build that into a pattern. That becomes a habit. It's not something you have to think about anymore. It's something that just happens. That's how your body fires. So using the cues that we mentioned, setting timers, and also you could potentially, you could put your webcam on even if you're not streaming, and just every so often look at like, oh dear God, what am I doing with my neck? Let me fix that. Turtleneck.
exactly.
Let's see. Somebody said, I've been following along and adjusting my posture as you guys recommended. Doing so actually caused some slight discomfort after about 5 to 10 minutes. Is this normal from someone who's had poor posture after many years of gaming? Yes. You're asking your muscles to do something new. They aren't.
Exactly.
So we are creatures of inertia. We like to remain at rest unless otherwise forced. Our muscles are the same way. They really don't like to change what they've been doing. So yes, changing any muscle pattern is A, not going to be easy, and B, occasionally going to be uncomfortable. If it's causing you pain persistently, that's a problem. If it's causing you disruption in your ability to do normal functional activities, that's a problem. But if your muscles are taking on some ache or some strain or some that good after workout tension feel, that's pretty normal.
Yep. It's totally normal.
Totally normal. Don't worry, you
Yep.
have not injured yourself.
Expected.
Yeah.
Exactly. We should have mentioned that. If you're feeling some discomfort and you've been sitting like this for a while, you should expect that. Your
Yep.
muscles adapt and shorten
Hmm.
when you're in that type of position. So you're exposing it to some new lengths that it
Yeah.
hasn't seen maybe in a while. So
And
it's okay.
the more you continue with that good pattern, the more you teach yourself that good habit, the less it will be uncomfortable.
Exactly.
It looks like that is all the questions we got for this week. Or this month,
Yeah.
I guess. You guys are
Perfect.
always welcome to tweet us more questions at Kate McGee PT and at HP for Gamers. And I think you wanted to give us a brief teaser of not next episode,
Yeah.
but the one after that, what we're going to be talking about.
Right, probably 2 episodes from now, we were going to talk about specific exercises that you guys can do to target these common postural faults that we find. So your shoulder blades too low, your shoulders too rounded forward, your lower back too rounded. We're going to go over all these really common things that you find when you have poor posture, and then tell you 1 to 2 exercises you can do within a minute, within 2 minutes, within 5 minutes to work against them so that, one, you're already holding better posture after this, hopefully, and
And
two,
then,
you can learn the exercises to actually work on them, just like Caitlin had mentioned earlier, in that, hey, we're prepping our bodies for this physical stress of playing for 10 to 14 hours of competitive play. So we want to prepare our bodies physically in that way to manage that stress.
yep. So there's a training outside of just gaming that we need to do for our muscles to be prepared to support us in gaming. So if you guys don't remember anything else from this episode, remember deep breath, turtleneck, up and in, align your points, slightly up, slightly round, never tilted.
Exactly. And actually, I have...
Oh, I did just
This-
see something in chat. Sorry, before you go.
Oh, go for it.
I just see
Go for it,
something in
it's fine.
chat that's worth mentioning. Somebody said, I'm slightly adjusting my posture. My left blade is literally trying to run away. I can't keep it close to my back. It's better when I move my keyboard more to the left. That's the last piece of posture. You can't maintain good posture if your setup doesn't support you in it. So I could have all the good intentions of the world. I could have plenty of training. I could have strong muscles, enduring muscles. But if my mouse is way the hell over here, or if my keyboard is way up too high, or if my chair has a big pillow right here and it's forcing my head forward, all those postural things I've worked on mean absolutely nothing. So once you have good posture, you need to make sure that you've got a setup built around your good posture. So you need to change your habits, but you also need to change your setup's habits.
There's another question about slight itch, which is typically related to nerve symptoms, but you want to touch on it, or?
It's another one
Yeah.
that kind of, it depends. If by itch you literally mean on the skin itch, you may in fact have an irritant that you're rubbing up against. But if you're talking about things like tingling, prickling, that pins and needles sensation, things like that, those are nerve signs, and yes, those are things that are worth seeing a doctor about.
Yeah, and you can always try some of the recommendations that we offer to see if that changes anything. A lot of the times you're
Just
putting
a
a little
postural
too much
thing.
pressure on that area. Yeah, and just got to take a little more breaks. That's one big thing that I want to just touch on
Go for it.
at the very end of all of this is just that, hey, you can assume better posture. You can set up your environment perfectly with ergonomics. But if you sit there for 50 hours, that's not going to be good for you.
Nope.
Okay? 50 hours of any position is not going to be good for you,
Nope.
even if it's the perfect posture. So just remember, set those alarms, set up rules if you can. Check yourself. Hey, after every 2 solo queue games, after maybe halfway through the raid, I'll just chill for a little bit, check my posture for 30 seconds, and then get back to it. You know, rules are going to be helpful in addition to the alarm that Caitlin had mentioned. And
Right.
I actually want to kind of use this opportunity to share with you guys this little posture challenge that I came up with. And I just stumbled upon this website called coach.me recently, and I'm going to post it in chat. Oh, deleted link.
Oh, sorry. Let me permit you. Oh, I don't have you
Here,
modded. Wait, how do I not have you mod? Oh God, I'm sorry, guys. Hold on.
I'm muted.
No, you're a mod
not
now.
important.
You can try again. Go ahead.
Yeah.
There we go.
Wait, it worked?
Yeah.
It says deleted. Oh, it's
Well,
okay,
the first
fine.
link was deleted. I fixed that.
But anyway, so you guys can see it here. I'm going to publish this posture post too. You guys can see this little gaming posture challenge in that, hey, we kind of describe and I wrote down everything that kind of we talked about in an article of mine, and you can reference my article or you can reference Kalen's. I'll include that in there too,
Okay.
actually. But you guys can use this as a way to get back to it. I made a little cheat sheet too that's just one page that reminds you of the biggest things to pay attention to, and try to do this 30 days in a row. And every week you can just take a picture of yourself, a side selfie if possible, or just a selfie saying, hey, I'm 5 days in or out of 30. Anything that you guys can, this kind of allows you to keep track of yourself and see if you're actually improving your posture. And this is something I have
I'll
some
examine
of the
this.
CLG players on. So
All right.
um, try it and have fun with it because it's unique. I mean, I think one of the ways to make sure that we actually have better posture is to practice it. So make sure you guys try it if you guys have the time. And that's basically it. Really looking forward to the next time that we're able to speak about the exercises. And just remember, everyone needs to play more and hurt less and just live well so you can game well.
All right. So our next episode will be the first of next month. This week we were off by a week because, hey, it was New Year's. Um,
Not too much fun.
can neither confirm nor deny. But we'll be back next month with another episode of Evidence Based Esports. Until then, game on, play more, hurt less.
Yeah.